Welcome back to the Mindset Masterclass channel. In today's video, we're going to set out a step-by-step guide to avoiding poverty and growing your wealth. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our upcoming videos on personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. Step number 1. Build an emergency fund. This is one of those points which you've probably heard before on videos similar to this. It's become quite the cliche in the personal finance space. We won't go into too much detail on this topic, but essentially you need to make sure you have a cash reserve ready in case any sort of emergency arises, such as your car needing repairs or you getting made redundant from your job. Ideally, you will save enough in this fund to cover all your expenses for a few months, assuming it would take a while to find a new job. Moving on to step 2. Live below your means. Again, this is a fairly obvious one, but there is a huge disparity between those hearing this advice and those acting upon it. Take a look at your monthly income and your expenses, and then work out how to live without spending more than you earn. It sounds really simple, but so many people get this wrong, and that's how they end up taking out loans and credit cards and then end up in debt. They constantly look to borrow to fund their lifestyle, but struggle to pay it back. Many people overspend because they try to attain a certain lifestyle which they can't afford. This is usually because they want to emulate the lifestyle of the rich and famous, or even just their friends and peers. This is a huge mistake, because the debt it leads to causes a detrimental effect to quality of life if it's allowed to spiral out of control. Step number 3 now. Learn to be frugal with your money. This includes being disciplined, ignoring impulse purchases and learning to appreciate long-term benefits rather than giving in to instant gratification. Many people want to enjoy the thrill of purchasing new items. They find it therapeutic. The problem is this novelty soon wears off and they begin to yearn for a new purchase. This is typically associated with consumer goods and gadgets such as phones, games, consoles, clothes and shoes. These items are particularly bad for our long-term financial health because they are depreciating assets, that is, they lose value over time. Aside from purchasing consumer goods, many people will spend their money on short-term experiences such as nights out drinking or holidays. Instead of saving or investing any money for their future, they use any disposable income to go out clubbing or on expensive trips. While it's important to treat yourself and to enjoy life, it's also important to make sure this is kept in check and that you're not compromising your long-term financial future with these pursuits. These activities are even more harmful to our finances if they are funded with credit. A trip abroad funded on a credit card might seem like a good idea now, but months and years into the future, when you're still paying it back, it might not seem like such a good idea after all. On to step number 4. Prioritise paying yourself first. This is one which always divides opinion. People are quick to point out that they have bills and other financial commitments to pay as a priority on payday. We are not saying you shouldn't pay those bills, but you need to learn to avoid the mistake of only saving or investing what's left at the end of the month. Instead, set a certain percentage of each paycheck which you divert to a savings account every payday. Set up an automatic payment with your bank if you have to. Once you've paid that money towards your future, settled your bills, kept some aside for day-to-day expenses, then you will have some left over with which you can buy things like new clothes and shoes if you must. Those things are not a priority, so by putting them at the bottom of the list, you are only allowing yourself to spend within your budget. This avoids overspending and therefore neglecting your savings or investments. Investing should be a priority for building wealth for the future, especially for a time when you are no longer able to work due to age or health. Many of us would like to retire with enough time to spare before we have to worry about our health, so investing becomes even more important in the pursuit of retiring early. If you neglect your savings and investments, you are essentially taking money out of the hands of your future self. When we consider that investments grow and compound over time, we are in fact foregoing more value in the future than we are even spending in the moment. What might seem like a small expenditure on a new coat today might have grown to the value of a whole wardrobe full by the time we retire. Moving on to step 5 now. Learn the difference between assets and liabilities. We've already discussed this at great length on this channel, but I'll explain it briefly for our newer viewers. On this channel, we like to advocate for the Kiyosakian interpretation of assets and liabilities. If you haven't read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I would highly recommend you buy a copy. I'll put a link in the video description. Kiyosaki argues that assets are things we own which put money into our pockets. This could be through increased value over time, such as stocks, commodities, or collectibles. It could also include any tools or tech you may use to earn a living, despite the fact that these items lose value over time. The author also states that liabilities are things we spend money on which take money out of our pockets. This could be anything from the clothes and shoes we spend money on to our personal car and tech items which we do not use for work, such as games, consoles, and TVs. At Mindset Masterclass, we like to take this definition one step further and argue that if it does not provide cash flow, i.e. regularly generate an income, it is a liability. So even a personal residence like your own apartment or house, if you're paying for its maintenance, making repayments on it, or in any other way spending more on it than it's paying you month to month, it is in fact a liability. Only when the house is sold for a profit can it be considered to be an asset. Tech items and cars may be useful items and even necessities for your family life or for work, but because they lose value, they are still liabilities. This definition of ours specifies that only expenditures or purchases which generate a regular income outweighing not just their upfront cost, but also their maintenance and rate of depreciation can be considered to be assets. The type of assets we advocate for include cash flowing businesses, dividend paying stocks, rental property, and intellectual property. This leads us nicely onto the next step: build an investment portfolio. Investments come in all shapes and sizes. The term investment might be defined differently from one person to another. Typically, investment might make you think of a stock market portfolio, but there are many other forms of investments to consider too. Aside from shares on the stock market, you could invest in cryptocurrency, rental property, collectibles, intellectual property, or anything else which grows in value or generates an income. There is, however, one major caveat which comes with this point. Do not start investing in these types of assets until you have cleared any high-interest consumer debt. There is little point in buying stocks which might produce an annual growth of 6% if you have credit card debt with an annualized interest of around 20%, for example. Clear the debt first and then invest. Once your debt is clear, you could start to look at building a diversified portfolio, including multiple asset classes, stocks, crypto, property, and within those classes, diversify between different companies, coins, or locations. Don't expect your investment portfolio to make you wealthy fast. This is not some sort of get-rich-quick scheme. Profitable investing takes time to learn and execute. Even with knowledge and patience, this sort of investing is unlikely to bring you life-changing wealth. What you really need is an income from which you can allocate more money to investing. Think of investing in stocks, crypto, and property not as a way to generate wealth, but rather as a way to protect and grow your existing wealth. This leads us on to step number 7. Do not rely on a day job alone for your financial security. Another form of investment which we advocate for on this channel is investment in a business. We're not suggesting you give up your day job and start a new company which will take you years to earn money from, but instead a side hustle or some sort of business you can operate in your free time. Income from a day job alone is unlikely to make you rich. Not all of us can be doctors, lawyers, or celebrated football players, and even those of us who are lucky enough to have those careers are not exempt from the threat of eventual poverty, especially if we fail to plan for our retirement. It's rare to be able to replace your day job income straight away with a business, so keep your day job for now, at least until your side hustle income consistently matches or exceeds your salary. In the 21st century, it's foolish to rely on one source of income. Jobs are no longer for life as they may have been for our parents, and companies will waste no time in laying off staff should market conditions dictate. Therefore, a second and ideally beyond source of income is essential. Perhaps if you have a job which pays well and you're happy in it, then a side hustle need not become more than that, just an additional source of income. Many of us, however, pursue our own businesses to escape having to work for someone else. I'm not saying that financial freedom can definitely not be attained by a day job, but you're better placed to achieve freedom of time in a business you own yourself. Yes, you will put in a lot of effort and time to begin with, but the goal many of us strive for is to eventually be able to automate our business process, i.e. arrange for the services or products we provide to be researched, sourced, inventoried, marketed and delivered by staff or external delegates. Then, when we have these systems running automatically, we can take time for ourselves and reap the financial rewards. Essentially, it is foolish to rely on a day job alone to escape poverty and become rich. This sort of drastic change only comes from taking massive action. There is nothing comfortable about the process of escaping poverty or becoming wealthy. It is a laborious, emotionally intensive and time-consuming pursuit. If getting rich was easy, everyone would do it. My advice to anyone watching this who is seriously considering trying to do what they can to escape poverty or to become wealthy is to put in place a plan of how exactly you are going to achieve it. State a goal, such as a specific numerical figure of how much money you want to have in your bank account or the value of your portfolio, and then work backwards from there. If you enjoyed this video, see the other videos on our channel about personal finance and money mindset.